realistic shot of winning the Republican nomination.
Definitely. In fact, that's what I was going to talk about last week. I was going to talk about the fact that the St. Pete Times is so afraid that Ron Paul might win that they went out and did a poll, and they lied in their poll and said he only had 2% support. Now, that article was run by the St. Pete Times. It was a front-page article
Anthony,
on November 11th. But on
Go ahead.
November 6th, Ron Paul took first place in the New York City Republican Club straw poll with 43% of the vote.
But there are no Republicans in New York City. But the point is,
Giuliani territory. Ron Paul's number one, but somehow
somebody elected Giuliani.
St. Pete Times missed that.
We have a $3 trillion budget. That's what the United States budget is, $3 trillion.
2.7, yeah.
How is that money going to be collected? How are these government institutions just going to fade away? I mean, you cannot even get rid of like a minor 1% reduction in the budget. What makes you think someone like Ron Paul as president can actually eliminate entire government departments? That's like insanity.
Well, some departments are completely unconstitutional. There's no basis in law for them.
And because we've been doing something wrong for years and years and years, we should continue that?
Listen,
that's a ridiculous concept. We need to stop it sometime.
Yeah, but the point is, you cannot, we cannot go back to the 1700s. We cannot go back to the gold standard. There just isn't $3 trillion worth of gold out there.
Up to 1903, we didn't have any personal income taxes. We ran this country fine. Less than 50% of the budget is actually paid for out of personal income taxes.
How would 3/4 of all the social services, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, et cetera, how would that actually be funded? If we went on the gold standard or the silver.
It would continue to be funded, but what would happen?
There's not $3 trillion
first thing, if we get out of the
there.
135 countries that we are occupying and having troop presences in, we would save a lot of money.
So what no one thinks about are the vast amount of assets at the American government's disposal. The American government owns a tremendous amount of property, a tremendous amount of securities.
So what we're saying
it would take some financial reallocation. Okay, it would take a little fine tuning, but in the long run,
and you would be doing the accounting for this.
In the long run, freedom leads to more prosperity. And when you increase government, if you look at governments throughout history, as governments grow, they become more burdensome on the populace, more burdensome on the economy.
We have a viewer on the. Let's see what the viewer.
Viewer,
you're on the air. What's your name and what's your comment or question?
Hey, this is Steven. I just heard the most ridiculous thing from the gentleman on the right saying that we shouldn't go back to the 1700s, and these are the same people that say that we shouldn't go back to a constitutional government, and the gentleman on the left should point that out to him.
All right, thanks, Steven. Good point. I was waiting for you guys to bring that up.
So let's say, how would we go back to, we would have to eliminate millions and millions of jobs. In this government, in this timeline, we cannot even eliminate like a penny out of the budget. Who would actually be able to eliminate $1 trillion, $2 trillion of people out from the United States government? You know how many unions and legal beagles and you name it. You can't even build a building because there's a rat there that is endangered.
Because of all the government regulations.
And that's because of the government.
Exactly. But
so what we need to do is do exactly what Ron Paul says, which is we need to show that we need to go a different direction. There is no difference between the current Republican candidates and the current Democrat candidates. Okay, there is no difference. They all want larger government. That's all they want. Larger government, more power, and more ability to control the economy of the United States and take money from the people and give it to their favored groups.
Well, that's true, but remember, the Democrats tell us that big corporate interests. So if the big corporations are running the government, then how can you say that the government runs the economy?
I'm not saying that the big corporations.
The president has a tremendous amount of power.
The Democrats are telling us.
What we're saying is our current leadership is beholding to the big corporate interests. Yeah. They do favors for the big corporate interests. If you look at our current savings and loan, mortgage financial crisis, and you go back in history just a little bit, during Bush's father's presidency, we had another savings and loan crisis. Isn't that interesting how we have two big financial crises which are going to result in people's homes, businesses, etc. being lost.
So you're saying this is in direct correlation with the Bush family?
The crisis that was created during the savings and loan is because the changes in government taxation changed the whole perspective of real estate. Now
they changed tax laws to devalue real estate, and at the same time they changed lending regulations to make.
Now, who changed the lending regulations that put everybody in this kind of situation?
You know, that was the Republican administration in cooperation with the Democratic Congress.
And what did they try to do? They try to tell businesses, mainly banks, that you must lend money to minority organizations, small communities that are pretty much dilapidated.
What they did is they said, we're going to completely revalue all real estate assets, and we're going to change the rules regarding your loans.
And what did that create?
So what we're going to do, what it created was, it took everybody that was a small businessman out of the development industry, okay? And it took away a bunch of small banks. It consolidated the banking industry, consolidated the development industry. The people that benefited were the super wealthy, moneyed interest.
One of the things that happens is that because more and more, lower-end communities where the banks had to lend to people regardless of their ability to pay.
All right, regardless of whatever you guys are talking about, does Ron Paul have a chance to win in Iowa and New Hampshire?
No.
Definitely.
He definitely has a
prayer.
very good chance in New Hampshire.
He doesn't have a prayer.
Well, even if you go back to Reagan and also to Clinton, I mean, I think if I remember correctly, Clinton came in third in New Hampshire, but he still managed to win the presidency.
Well, the Manchester, New Hampshire straw poll.
Third-party candidate.
Manchester, New Hampshire straw poll. September 16th, Ron Paul got 65% of the vote.
Those polls were probably created on Diebold machines that you guys complain
These are straw polls that are conducted by local Republican
That's the other thing that Ron Paul would get rid of.
Right.
The Diebold machines you guys use for your ATM is not good enough for the voting system.
So now, guys,
I don't feel that the people's pockets should be in the ATM for a bunch of special interests that influence government.
Well, who is special interest?
Steve, how's Ron Paul's funding coming around? How is his campaign, the contributions? How much money has he raised?
I think total he's over 10 million.
He's over 10 million.
Yeah.
And how much more does he have a goal? How much more does he need?
The last I heard, and I'm not positive about this, but the last I heard in the fourth quarter, I think he wanted to get 12 million.
So is he one of the leaders now with the contributions coming in?
Well, he's actually. It depends. There's a couple of different ways the FEC tracks that. Okay, but if you take Mitt Romney, for example, okay, there are the debts that Mitt Romney has already incurred on his campaign are at like the point of I think 17 million, something like that. He actually has cash on hand 9 million. So he's fundamentally, unless he injects another 8 or 10 million of his own money, which he's done twice already, more money into his personal, out of his personal pocket, okay, then he's basically fundamentally bankrupt. McCain is fundamentally bankrupt. Giuliani is not doing too bad, but if you run all the numbers,
he can't even win a straw poll in his own hometown.
Yeah, but if you run all the numbers, basically Ron Paul is in third place.